At the next state election, South Australians will be asked to vote on the future of the Legislative Council, the state upper house. It's a very important issue, one that affects all South Australians. The Legislative Council provides checks and balances on all legislation that passes through the lower house of State Parliament. In recent years, it's played an invaluable role in defending the rights of PSA members by reviewing and often amending legislation. For that reason, the PSA is pleased to present this video. It will help give all members a better understanding of the Legislative Council and the critical role it plays in our democracy.
Ever since 1857, we in South Australia have benefited from a bicameral parliamentary system. That is, a parliament with two legislative bodies, an upper house, the Legislative Council, and a lower house, the House of Assembly. Over time, our parliament, especially our upper house, has changed with the times, becoming more in tune with the needs of the people. In fact, it was Mike Rann, today's Premier, who referred to our state's parliamentary system as a model of democracy for the country. Let's reflect that it was Don Dunstan's reforms that gave us an upper house elected by all voters over 18 in one electorate, the entire state. The reforms Mr. Rann referred to were passed in 1973, when our upper house or Legislative Council was changed from a body representing only large landowners and the social elite. Indeed, prior to these landmark reforms, to simply be eligible to vote for the upper house, you would have had to be a landowner yourself. Dunstan's reforms changed all that. They established full adult suffrage, enabling all adult South Australians to vote for the upper house. The reforms introduced proportional representation, a fairer system which reduced the chances of one political party dominating the makeup of the upper house.
Democracy is about giving people a choice when it comes to polling day, and our upper houses deliver that. Because of the way we count the vote in the upper house, minor parties and independents have a chance.
Today, for example, the Legislative Council has 6 members from groups other than the major parties. Over a quarter of the members in the House are independents, including No Pokies, the Australian Democrats, Greens and Family First. In the lower house, over 90% of seats are held by the major political parties. So in the upper house, a wider spectrum of opinion is represented, with more and varied voices, not just the will of one or two powerful political parties. Its voting system ensures it accurately represents the people of South Australia as a whole. But today, Premier Rann is proposing to make changes to the body elected by the people to represent us all. The body so vital to the system Mr. Rann himself referred to as a model of democracy for Australia. In a referendum scheduled for 2010, a question may be put to you and every South Australian voter on whether to abolish the upper house, reduce the number of upper house members and the length of members' terms, or fundamentally alter its powers and responsibilities. It's so important the upper house continues the role it has so successfully played for the past 150 years. And when you understand what the upper house has done to protect the interests of all South Australians, it's easy to see why. So, what would life in South Australia be like if the upper house was, in fact, done away with? Recent history provides some revealing answers. In 2000, the Liberal state government, then led by John Olsen, sought to privatise the State Lotteries Commission. Debate was robust in both houses of Parliament, but particularly so in the upper house. Here, the Labor opposition joined forces with the Democrats and Independents to put a strong case against the proposed outsourcing of the lottery. They argued that significant funds generated by the state-run lotteries had always been directed into the state's public health system, and that these valuable funds would be lost to the state if privatisation proceeded, and that problem gambling would be more likely to increase and be exploited should the lotteries be transferred to private hands. Due to the debate in the upper house, the issue was soon taken up by the community at large, and so overwhelming was public opposition that the policy was abandoned altogether. Without the upper house, the public's interest simply could not have been so keenly defended, and the privatisation bill would have been pushed into law by the ruling party of the day.
I mean, great irony is one of the most significant decisions that South Australians were protected on was in 1995, and I remember the debate about workers' compensation, about the work cover scheme back then, because I was the state president of the Plaintiff Lawyers Association fighting for injured workers' rights. If it wasn't for the then Labor opposition and the Democrats who had the balance of power to water down that legislation, to make it fairer, to knock off the rough edges, injured workers would have been much worse off. The irony is that you fast forward to 13 years and you have a Labor government that in opposition fought for workers' entitlements to be preserved, to be saved, actually put up legislation that was even worse than what the Liberals did in 1995, and because the Liberals backed the legislation in the upper house, the views of the crossbenchers just weren't relevant, unfortunately. So the message there is the more people that vote for minor parties and independents in the upper house, the better the chance of it being a safeguard in a democracy against governments that stuff up.
Government has to be accountable to all the people. And in that issue and many others, the Legislative Council did the job it was elected to do. It has also played an important role in such diverse areas as superannuation, poker machines and environmental issues. Upper houses, such as the Legislative Council in South Australia and the Senate in the Federal Parliament, play a vital role as houses of review, meaning they can propose changes and amendments that are judged to be in the public interest. That's their job. That's what you elect them to do. And it's important they continue to exist and are not controlled by the government of the day.
Okay, if we lost the upper house in South Australia, I think we'd lose an enormous amount of experience, an enormous range of opinions, and I think there would be the danger of the party political system, one party having more power than they currently do. And so legislation would be pushed through, and I can think of examples in the federal sense where legislation has been pushed through because one party has the total balance of power. And that means that a vast majority of the population are not represented.
When John Howard gained control of the Senate, Work Choices was rushed through with all its terrible impacts upon workers and the community. And former Victorian Premier Jeff Kennett privatised many state assets when his government controlled both houses of Parliament. Consider this. If the upper house were to be abolished, leaving South Australia with only the House of Assembly to initiate and deliberate on legislation, a political party need only the barest majority to control 100% of the lawmaking power in South Australia. That party would be unfettered, unchecked, and quite possibly uninterested in your voice, what you care about and believe in. Because the lower house isn't a people's house anymore, it's a political party's house. This is the house that is truly representative, the house that has never been controlled by a political party, the house where independence and individuality are respected, the only house where minorities can be heard. Here, you have a voice. And here, the members are truly accountable to you. Because this is not a political party's house. This is your house. Don't let anyone take it away from you.